I have been doing something recently that is probably not a very good thing to do. And that thing is, when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I seem to do anymore is reach for my phone and automatically pull up Threads and start the doom scroll. And I was about to say that it's this weird compulsion, but I think by now we can be honest, it is the dopamine slot machine. It is an addiction, and nobody likes to admit an addiction. But as I'm trying to be transparent on this program, yeah, I'm still in the throes of an addiction to that dopamine slot machine. And Threads is really great at providing it. The problem is almost 100% of what I doom scroll at 6 or 6:30 or 7 a.m. on Threads is not helpful. It's negative politics. It's anger. It's these TMI clickbait posts that are literally explicitly designed to just get attention for people. And it's kind of a fine line, though, because we know that a lot happens overnight anymore. A lot happens overnight anymore. And so there's a certain justification you can give for picking up your phone in the morning just to see what the hell happened last night. What are we waking up to today? What fresh hell awaits us as we rise from our slumber? But it's damn well not helpful, and it sets you automatically in this fear-based mentality. It automatically spikes not just your dopamine, but your cortisol. Starts your day off in what I think is not a helpful way, but they're so good at it. And I, after years now of being just like probably all of you, addicted to the damn dopamine slot machine, it's just a thing that you do every morning now, and it's not damn helpful, and so much of it is negative, fearful, angry, violent, and I just want to provide today, generally speaking on this program, I want to provide an antidote to the negativity in the world. Today, I just want to dig into, for the most part, a few quotes. Just something as simple as a few quotes that I have found in my travels over the past couple of weeks that might provide just a little more positive impetus to your life. And I've also got some more cool new music to talk about, and we're going to do all of that. I shall attempt to wax Semi-Eloquent once again this week, after we do the thing. I think an awful lot lately about time. I think about time and how we spend it. I think about time and how saying that time is running out feels a little bit sensational, feels a little bit fearful. But that's the truth, kids. I mean, I'm 52 now, nearly 52 and a half. And as you get older, you begin to recognize time is a finite commodity. Back in your 20s, back in your 30s, you feel as though life will last forever. And the reality is it does not. And as you begin to reach a certain middle age, you watch your parents begin to go. You watch even some people in your own age group or slightly older than you begin to go, and you realize that time is finite. And you begin to become a lot more aware of what you're devoting your time to, what you're devoting your energy to. And when you realize that these things are limited, when you realize that they are not infinite, suddenly it becomes a lot more precious. Suddenly you become a lot more aware of what you are devoting your time to, what you're devoting your energy to. And the question becomes fundamentally, are you devoting your time and energy to things that really count? Things that matter to you? Are you giving your time and energy to things that fulfill you? To things that make you feel good? To things that make you feel happy? To things that you know are right for you? And I know in my own life, and I'm pretty sure you know in yours, that a lot of the time you are not devoting your time and energy to the things that really matter to you, to the things that make a difference, to the things that fulfill you, to the things that make you happy. And that just tends to be the human condition. We get wrapped up in this thing called life, and these obligations or these pressures we put on ourselves. We tend to stay in an uncomfortable comfort rather than push into something new. I've talked at length recently on this program about how people tend not to change until the pain of changing is less than the pain of staying the same. And you watch people in your life, perhaps you experience it in your own life, knowing that a change would be so good, that a change would make such a huge difference. And yet the pain of changing is still more than the pain of staying the same. And that's everybody's to work out. But I think about it a lot as I recognize more and more and more that time is finite, that life is finite, that energy is finite. And the older you get, the more urgently the question becomes, how are you spending your time? And is it how you want to be spending your time? And so in my travels, I've begun lately to run across a lot of quotes that point in this direction. And I don't know if that's a universe thing or an algorithm thing, but maybe the algorithm is the universe, Jeff Thompson said, "My God can speak to me in any way." Somebody was bagging on him about horoscopes. He's like, "I don't believe the horoscope. That's all BS." Jeff Thompson's like, "Well, my God can speak to me in any way, including a horoscope. And maybe in my case, it's speaking to me through the algorithm, which seems to be presenting these quotes to me that make me think long and hard about how I'm spending my time and the fact that I won't be here forever. And life does not last forever. And that can be a little bit negative. That can feel like a bit of a downer, but it can also be a great impetus, right? The realization that you ain't going to live forever, the realization that you are choosing to spend your time how you're choosing to spend it. And if you're unhappy with that, you have to ask why you persist. That can be a great catalyst, right? That can be a great impetus. And that's how I'm trying to frame these things. But you don't have to take my word for it, okay? I found just the other day this quote by no less than Geddy Lee himself, the great Geddy Lee of Rush. And the quote is, "If I've learned anything from the terrible things that have happened in the past few years, it's the value of time. And to make sure you're spending your time the way you want to spend it." Geddy was perhaps talking about the death of the late, great Neil Peart, gone too soon from brain cancer. Again, the older you get, the more evidence, the more examples you see of life being finite. We all know people who have died very young. We all know people our own age who have already passed on. And you stop and you think, if that was me, could I say that I have spent the time the way I wanted to? Can I say that I've spent the time in fulfilling ways? Can I say that I've lived the dreams that I had from my life? Or if I was suddenly on my deathbed, would I look at it and say, what time I wasted? What dreams I didn't pursue? What situations I remained in that did not serve me? And now I've come to this moment of great regret. The luxury we have, those of us who are still alive, those of us who are still healthy, is that we can look at it and say, even if I have wasted a certain amount of time, and we all have, even if I have persisted with things that don't serve me, and we all have, even if I have unfulfilled dreams, and we all have, we have the luxury right now, those of us who are still alive and healthy, of saying, I can change that. I can stop wasting my time. I can stop devoting myself to things, situations, jobs, whatever, that do not serve me. I still have this opportunity right now to pursue what dreams I may have. And I'm here to tell you my whole story is an illustration that it's not too late. For most of us, it is not too late. All right. I became a really active gigging drummer in my late 30s. And I became a touring drummer in my middle 40s. At the time when you're supposed to be winding this stuff down, I was just getting it started. And I saw something else this week, which was also a great inspiration. And it was Ricky Rachtman. Did I say his last name right? Ricky Rachtman, who was the host of MTV's Headbangers Ball in the 90s, has done all sorts of TV stuff. And I saw a quote from him just today, I think it was, even this morning, part of my doom scroll, because he's in his 60s now. And back in the day, back in the 80s, he was a musician and trying to make it big as a musician, was friends with Axl, was part of that whole LA scene, trying to make it as a rock and roll musician. Didn't quite pan out for him. And I read a quote from him, or a story from him, talking about hanging out with the likes of Stephen Pearcy and some of those cats back in the day. And they're all telling road stories of when Rat was touring, or when GNR or Motley Crue, when these bands were touring in the 80s. Everybody's sitting around having a great laugh telling these stories. And Ricky Rachtman, is sitting there thinking, I wish I had had those stories. I mean, I wanted those stories. I was part of the scene. I was singing in bands. I wanted to be a rock star too, and it didn't happen for me. And he was lamenting, regretting that he didn't have those opportunities that a Stephen Pearcy or an Axl Rose had to go out and be on the road and do those things. Then you flash forward, Ricky Rachtman is now doing tours. He was talking about, weirdly, in his 60s, now he's getting that opportunity because he's going around being Ricky Rachtman, telling stories, performing, whatever, doing kind of a one-man show thing, touring all around. And it's like, in the end, it happened. He was in his 60s when that dream he had had since he was a kid finally came true, to be on the road touring. He's finally doing it. And it's really great when you run across an inspiring story like that. Like, this dream I had as a kid finally came to fruition 30 or 40 years after I thought it would. But here it is. The time was right and it's happening. And it happened for me too. I was in my middle 40s, suddenly finding myself touring in Europe and hoping to do so again. I have not given up on the dream of continuing to perform and tour and play around. I'm in a hell of a dry spell right now, but that's the way life goes sometimes. And you hear this all the time with writers. You hear this all the time with actors who slogged it out for years and years and years and years, and then all of a sudden broke. The book, finally they wrote something that got published. Finally, they landed a role that catapulted them into having the kind of career that they always wanted. You see this happening in the arts all the time. You see this sometimes with entrepreneurs who held on to the 9-to-5 for decades and then got downsized, laid off, fired, whatever, an illness. And it seemed as though life was over. And then at 58, suddenly they launched the business that they had been holding on to for years, right? Life either provided an opportunity or forced them into making that kind of decision. And all of a sudden they blossom. And so those of you who are my age, in my category, with dreams unfulfilled, I want to tell you that it's not too late. Now, maybe if you're 58, it's probably too late to play in the NHL. Doesn't mean you can't work in hockey, though. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean you can't have a job in the game. It doesn't mean you can't be around it. Maybe you can't be a player, but maybe you can still be in the game. You know what I mean? That was Ricky Rachtman. Well, it's like, I can't seem to make it as a musician in the 80s, but in a roundabout way, he found himself into the music media and still became part of that world anyways. Sometimes you have to reframe your perspective on stuff. But I'm the living proof that it's not too late. Ricky Rachtman is the living proof that it's not too late to live those dreams. But going back to the Geddy Lee quote, if I've learned anything from the terrible things that have happened in the past few years, it's the value of time. And to make sure you're spending your time the way you want to spend it. That is a huge question. Those of us who are 50-somethings, are you spending your time in the way that you want to spend it? Are you? And I think you know the answer. If you are, you know the answer. And if you're not, you know the answer. Question is, what are you going to do about it? How do you want to be spending your time? And I think a better addendum to that is, how do you want to be spending your energy? Is the way you spend your day fulfilling for you? Does it energize you? Do you get to the end of the day and say, I've really lived the way I wanted to today? And there can be different categories of your life. That can be work life, relationship life, home life, financial life, friendship life, that wheel of life that you've probably been introduced to at a corporate retreat somewhere along the way. It's like you're maybe not hitting the target in every category. Is your home life fulfilling for you? Are you spending your time at home in the way that you want to? Is that working for you, or are you missing something? As you get older, you realize the way you're living increasingly becomes the way you will live. Now, this is an observation I've made. All right, there is a narrow window of time, more narrow perhaps than you might think, when change is actually possible. You reach a certain age and you are stuck in a relationship, stuck in a home situation, whatever. There's a point at which maybe you don't have it in you to change that anymore. It's a narrow window, and I've watched people stay in an unfulfilling situation to the point where it was just too late. And then they missed out on, who knows, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years of living a different way, living in a much more fulfilled way, living much more the way that they actually want to and deserve to, and know that they do, know that they deserve and want to. But again, the fear of change never quite became easier than the fear of staying the same. And okay, that's their choice to make. But Getty makes a good damn point. Make sure you're spending your time the way you want to spend it. And are you? And that's just something to stop and consider. Your job, your career, are you spending it the way you want to? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. Maybe the compensation covers for that. Maybe it's like, my job doesn't matter all that much to me. I just need to cover the bills. And then my real intense passion and focus and fulfillment comes from something else. And that's fine. I mean, you do you, kids. But are you happy? If you're not happy, begin to look at, how am I spending my time? Am I spending it in the way that I want to? Or am I being pulled in all these directions I don't want to be pulled? Am I saying yes to things that I don't want to say yes to out of guilt, fear, obligation? What are you giving your time to for somebody else's benefit that you don't have to and you don't want to, and you're just afraid to say no? I spent most of my life as a people pleaser. Those of us who come from maybe slightly hostile environments learn very quickly to people please so as to keep the peace, right? Or to protect themselves. Okay, maybe that's you too. And so you say yes to things you don't want to do so as not to annoy somebody else. And I'll tell you a secret, most of the time, those people are not going to be annoyed if you say no, right? You personify these things. You take on the guilt that doesn't actually exist because maybe you were trained to. I don't know. Maybe that's a habit you have. But are you saying yes to things you don't want to out of some weird sense of obligation that isn't real? What would you rather be doing? Who would you rather be doing it with? Life is friggin' short. Getty's telling you. Neil Peart was arguably the greatest drummer on earth, and it didn't save him from a brain tumor that killed him very, very young. And it can happen to any of us. It can happen to any of us, not necessarily a brain tumor, but I know this is macabre and I know this is dark, but it's friggin' reality, kids. We are not promised tomorrow. We are not promised next week. We are not promised anything. And so as you get older, it becomes more urgent. You realize it. Tomorrow is not a guarantee. So how are you spending today? Are you glad? Are you pleased with how you've spent today? Are you excited, supposing you get tomorrow, about the prospect of how you're spending that? I can't answer that for you, but it's worth thinking about, especially if you are unfulfilled and unhappy. It's like time's a wasted. And I keep harping on this because I'm in my 50s. It's becoming very relevant to me. Now I look at somebody like Getty, who I think will probably look back and say, yep, great, lived the dream, did it great. And even he is saying, make sure you're spending your time the way you want to. And I fully concur. And I ran across another quote, very sobering indeed, which I actually saw on Threads. I do see some stuff on Threads that is helpful and useful. I see a lot of sensationalized BS. I see a lot of politics. I see a lot of clickbait. But I do occasionally run across something that is poignant and useful. And I suppose that's one of the reasons that I persist on there, quite apart from the dopamine slot machine. This quote from a person on Threads who says, as part of a story, says, I told him that someday is the most expensive word in the English language. Your life is happening right now in that small apartment today. Someday is the most expensive word in the English language. You don't need me to explain that, right? Someday. Aren't we all full of somedays? Ha! Someday I'm gonna go visit that place I always wanted to visit. Someday I'm gonna reconnect with that person. Someday I'm going to commit myself to the relationship that I actually want. Someday I'm going to get a different job. Someday I'm going to pursue this career. Someday I'm going to start painting again. Someday, someday, someday. It's the most expensive word in the English language, not perhaps monetarily, but existentially. What are you spending on your someday? What are you spending on Sunday? Someday I'm going to do that. Are you? Are you really going to do that someday? Or are you just fooling yourself? Right? Is someday just some illusion, some fun fantasy you hold on to while you remain living presently in real reality in an unfulfilled way? While you spend your time now how you don't want to spend it, you hold on to this illusion. You hold on to this fantasy of someday it will be different. That's a very expensive thing, because how much time are you going to waste with the illusion of someday? I've done this too. Someday I'm going to. Someday I'm going to. Someday we'll do that. I'm here to tell you that you can't wait on someday. It is an enormously expensive word. That's a really poignant quote. Someday is the most expensive word in the English language, because relying on someday, you spend years, perhaps decades, perhaps your whole life not actually getting there. And what have you wasted? What have you lost? What fulfillment have you chosen not to pursue? What happiness, what success, what experience have you chosen not to pursue because someday I'll do that? And if you start talking a lot about I'll do that someday, eventually you begin to question whether you're actually serious about that. Are you serious about your someday, or are you just using it as kind of a fantasy to escape from today? I can't answer that for you, but if you're a person who's talking a lot about someday, especially if you're my age or older, someday is here. Someday is here. You've got to choose someday now or stop talking about it. Right? And if you're younger, beware your somedays. Beware your somedays, because it goes by damn fast. Someday I'm going to run the Boston. Someday I'm going to go to Wimbledon. Someday I'm going to XYZ. I got to tell you, 20 years goes by damn fast. Damn fast. And so if you're talking about somedays, the next time you catch yourself saying someday, I want you to stop just for a second and ask yourself if you really mean that. Someday I'm going to XYZ. Just catch yourself and stop and say, do I mean that? Do I actually mean that? Or is someday a placeholder? Is someday an illusion? Is someday a fantasy I'm holding on to escape from my present reality, to escape from my today, which is not the today I want and not the fulfilling life I want, but I can't get out of it. I don't know how to change this. I don't know how to escape this, or I'm too afraid to change or escape this. And so I hold on to this idea of someday, and I placate myself with this idea of someday, knowing full damn well that I'm not going to do whatever it is I say I'm going to do someday. But it's feeling good right now to pretend that I will. Someday, I'm going to start writing again. Someday, I'm going to join a band and start playing. Someday, someday, someday. Most expensive damn word in the English language. If you mean it, if you're serious about whatever it is you're going to do someday, I humbly recommend you get on with doing it today. Because someday is promised to effing nobody. And the older you get, like Geddy Lee and me, the more you realize how expensive the word someday is. So, do you mean it? Do you friggin' mean it? All I'm doing is encouraging you the next time you say someday about anything, stop and ask yourself, do I mean this? And if you do mean it, then accelerate your effing timeline, because someday is not promised. And if you don't mean it, then stop effing saying that. Stop saying someday if you don't mean it, because you're just fooling yourself and you're turning a blind eye to your present day reality, which is changeable, if you focus on it and get serious about what it is you want to change in your friggin' life. If you get serious about the things you actually want to do instead of wrapping them up in someday, knowing full damn well you're not actually going to do that. Why waste the thought? Why waste the energy? I guess because it's easier and it feels good. It feels good to imagine a someday when you don't enjoy your today. But if you're just imagining a someday without actually dedicating yourself to it, then you're just fooling yourself and wasting your time, wasting your energy. So if nothing else, imagine a someday that you're serious about. And begin now, begin today, taking steps towards that someday. Because otherwise, perhaps you lose decades in the illusion of a someday that you have no intention of actually making a reality. And what have you done except fool yourself, trick yourself, hang a little carrot, the digital illusion of a carrot in front of your face, and trudge along, maintaining your misery, maintaining your unfulfillment. Don't do that. Geddy Lee and I know. Life is friggin' short. And the question is, how are you spending your time? And if you're spending your time indulging the illusion of a someday that you have no actual intention of making reality, stop that. Stop that and at least focus on a someday that you intend to make real, okay? There's one more that I found. I know this is a weird episode, but it's what's on my mind. It's another one on Threads, actually, that I found in a roundabout way. And it falls in line. It says, if your soul isn't dancing, change the song. Ho-ho! Is your soul dancing, kids? You get home tonight and you sit down after your day at work. Is your soul dancing? Is your soul dancing today? When you wake up in the morning and you are wise enough and mature enough not to reach for your phone and start scrolling threads, is your soul dancing? Is your soul dancing at the prospect of your day? Is your soul dancing at the prospect of the next year? Is your soul dancing when you get home and sit down in your space? Are you happy with your space? Are you happy with your job? Are you happy with your spouse? Are you happy with your friendships? Are you happy with your finances? Are you happy with your dreams? Is your soul dancing? Well, if it isn't, change the music. I know that's pithy and that's cute, but the key word is change. If nothing changes, nothing changes. You have to decide for yourself. My soul is not dancing. My soul is not dancing in this job. Oh, I'll change it someday. I'll get a new job someday. I'll change my life someday. Very damn expensive if you spend the next 20 years devoting yourself to the wrong and perhaps an unfulfilling life in pursuit of someday, the illusion of someday. Dude, if your soul's not dancing, change the effing music. Change. Change is the key word, but we're so damn frightened of change. We're so damn frightened of change. Most people would rather sit in the uncomfortable known than pursue a change that could lead to much more happiness, joy, fulfillment. Most people are content to stay with the devil they know rather than risk that uncertain, fearful period of not being in quote-unquote control. Quote-unquote control. How much control do we actually have? Well, scroll Threads in the morning and check the news. Not a whole lot, man. Change the damn song. If your soul's not dancing at work, change the song. That can mean a lot of things. That can mean changing your perspective on work. That can mean changing the responsibilities you have at work. That can mean changing departments. That can mean changing careers. That can just mean doing the same job in a different place. Change the damn music. We put up with stuff. Why do we put up with so much stuff? We just sit and we lump it. So many of us in our relationships, in our jobs, in our bands, in whatever, we just take it. Why do we sit and take it? Well, again, the fear of change is greater than the fear of staying the same. That is a fundamental hurdle. But you can change the damn music. If you are not dancing, you can change the tune, all right? It's possible to do that. I don't know why so many of us remain so static. We pay lip service to this illusion of change, this illusion of someday. Someday we'll do that. BS. I'm calling you on your BS right now. Calling me on mine. We don't have to sit where our souls aren't dancing. You can change the music. You can change the tune. I'm living proof. I'm living proof that you can still have wonderful experiences in your 40s, in your 50s. Ricky Reichman, other people you know who have just made the change. Sometimes life forces the change. Sometimes that's the easier thing. Much, much easier to change when life forces it upon you than it is to make the decision to change. I ask you which is more empowering. That's up to you. I suppose what matters in the end is that you somehow get there. I mean, I've seen lots of stories, heard lots of stories. I know people in my own personal life who got laid off and it was devastating. And then a few months later was the greatest damn thing that ever happened to them. Or a relationship fell apart that was devastating and turned out to be the greatest damn thing that ever happened to them because they found somebody else or they freed up this energy to go pursue their dreams. And then all of a sudden life is way better than it would have been otherwise. We hear these stories all the time of what appears to be a tragedy or a negative circumstance in the end being the greatest thing that ever happened. Sometimes change is thrust upon you, and in some ways that's the easier way out. I don't know. I'm saying you can choose it. I'm saying you can choose change. You can choose to change the music if your soul's not dancing. And I'm looking around at the world. This is where all of this starts. Because I'm picking up my phone and I'm reading about invasions of Iran. I'm reading about Venezuela. I'm reading about all of the crazy stuff that's happening around the world that seems to be happening with no plan, no purpose, no consequences for anything. And I'm looking around and it's so easy to get caught up in the fear, negativity, the hopelessness of all of that. And you become, in a sense, powerless. And I think that's the idea. I think whoever's behind all of this is driving at making people so fearful that they just become complicit, or so fearful that they become incapable of action. People who are terrified are much easier to force into stuff, taking away their power through sheer hopelessness. There's a scene in Enemy at the Gates. Remember that movie, Enemy at the Gates? It's about the Battle of Stalingrad, and it's It's from the Soviet Army's perspective. And the German invasion of the Soviet Union has happened, and they've pushed them all the way back to Stalingrad, where the Soviets will make their last stand against this overwhelming, oppressive, invading army of Nazi Germany. And the Battle of Stalingrad, which is, I think if I remember correctly, the highest casualties, the bloodiest battle in the history of the world, something like 2 million people either died or were casualties at Stalingrad. Horrendous. One of the worst places, Dan Carlin of Hardcore History will talk sometimes about the worst places you could be in human history. One of the worst places you could be in human history is at the Battle of Stalingrad, which turned into this horrendous siege of the Nazi army against the Soviet Union. And Enemy at the Gates is not a great movie, but it's about snipers, Soviet snipers in the Battle of Stalingrad. And there's a moment where Soviet general, who is it? I forget, is addressing some troops because the troops are terrified and they're not fighting. They're not showing that sort of stand up and die for Mother Russia. They're not doing the thing. And the general is like, I want the men to have courage. And he's like, what do we do? And then there's just a voice from the corner that says, give them hope. Give the men hope. A lot of what we see in the world right now seems designed to crush hope. Seems designed to crush spirit, to make people complicit and complacent because they feel as though they have no agency. They see what's going on in the world with impunity, with no consequences, nobody seeming to do anything about it, and you can begin to feel as though you are powerless. And maybe on a global scale you are. As an individual, collectively, no. I'm here to say you have agency in the place that matters, which is your own life. And so I present these quotes to you as the antidote to this oppressive hopelessness and powerlessness that seems to be pervasive in the world today. I'm saying to you, change is possible. And I'm saying to you, change is necessary, especially as you reach my age and older. This is it. This is it. Are you going to change to what makes your soul dance? Or are you going to be resigned? There comes a point where it's too frigging late. And even if you do make the change, you've missed. You've given yourself to someday, and that's the most expensive word because you lost 10 years. You lost 10 years. You lost 15 years of what could have been your life if you had just had the courage to change the music when your soul wasn't dancing. I can't do that for you. I can barely do it for me. I know it's frigging difficult, but I'm trying to present to you in a weird way some motivation, some inspiration, some impetus, because it is possible. It is possible to change. All right. It is possible to live the things you want to live now, and you need to live them now because time is running out. Time is going by, and the older you get, just like Geddy Lee, the more you realize how fragile it all is. You are not promised someday, kids. I am not, you are not. And the question is, if your soul is not dancing, what the hell are you going to do about it? And are you serious about your somedays? I want you to be. I want to be. This is the friggin' moment. This is the time. It's like you change now or you change soon, or you accept that this is you for the rest of your life. You accept that this is your life for the rest of your life. And can you live with that? Can't answer that for you. But I think it's important to get real about it. At least be conscious. No, I'm going to stay in this situation forever because. And you got your reasons, and that's fine. But be honest. Be honest about it at least. Don't keep life as it is for the sake of some someday that you're not actually serious about. I know that sounds harsh, but it's friggin' true. And the older you get, the more harsh life becomes, the more harsh reality becomes. We are none of us guaranteed someday. We are none of us guaranteed tomorrow. And so you ask yourself, am I living today in such a way that if I don't have tomorrow, I'll know that I did it my way? Can't answer that for you, but it's on my mind a lot these days. Perhaps it's on your mind too. If your soul's not dancing, you can change the music, kids. You do not have to stay as you are in your job, in your relationships, whatever it is that's not fulfilling for you. You can and you frigging should change it, because life is short. That's a simple reality, or it is finite. And one of the things you ought to be doing is listening to really good music. I want to give a shout out to Octobernaut. I talked about them, this band from Berlin, last week. I talked about their new song, Rasa, which is just a great damn song. And they did it right. Okay, now I tagged them on my socials last week. I made a point of pointing people at their song and at their socials, whatever. And so when I tagged them last week on Insta, they responded. Wow, man, just listen to the episode and we're all extremely honored and humbled by your words. Thank you so much for this. It made our day. It's one of the reasons that I make a point of highlighting indie bands. I mean, it would be much easier and I'd probably get a lot more traction if, I talked about, let's say, for example, the new Beyonce song or the new Taylor Swift song, which has millions of views within the first few hours. That's where the zeitgeist is. That's where all the attention is. And it would probably help me out mathematically to do that. I don't do that because Taylor Swift doesn't care if I talk about her or not. But Octobernaut does. And I have played in and still play in indie bands that work their fingers to the friggin' bone and put out music and go play shows. And it's just crickets. It's like nobody notices. I see this on Threads a lot too, because I follow a lot of musicians and the algorithm knows that I pay attention to music threads. And I see a lot of particularly indie musicians posting, why am I doing this? I put out a new song last week. It has 4 streams. Nobody cares. And that is a demoralizing thing because this is your dream, because this is your passion. This is what you're here for, is to make this music. And you do it and nobody cares. Or it feels as though nobody cares. I feel the same way with the podcast, by the way. I mean, I put this thing out a lot of times to crickets, to no response whatsoever. And they go, well, why do I do this? And it's a question I got to answer. Do I need to change the music, Band like Octobernaut puts out their song and some podcaster from Canada talks about it. They're from Berlin. Some podcaster from Canada talks about it. And you can ride for weeks, maybe months on something like that. Depends on the size of the podcast, maybe. But if you're an indie band and somebody out across an ocean hears you, finds you, talks about you, what a shot in the arm that is. And Octobernaut did it right. They acknowledged that somebody was talking about them. They left me a comment also on YouTube. And that's how you do it, kids. All right, all you indie bands out there, if you are lucky enough to get any coverage from anybody, you share that, you comment on it, you express your appreciation for it, okay? That is A, just a simple human decency. B, part of playing the friggin' game, all right? Those of you who are out there, if you get any sort of attention from anywhere, share it, like it, be grateful for it publicly, okay? That is part of the friggin' game. So kudos Octobernaut for playing the game right and for the great friggin' song they released. This week, I've got something just really cool that grew on me. This week, it's a band from Ireland. The band is called Soda Blonde. 2 words, S-O-D-A space B-L-O-N-D-E. And they are, I guess we would describe them as an alt-pop band from Ireland. And they released a song last week called Suit and Tie. And what do I say about it? This remains the bane of my existence as a pseudo-music podcast, at least partially. I can't play the damn music, which is why I created the referenced on the pod playlist on Spotify. I will put this song, Suit and Tie by Soda Blonde, on it. And what do I say about it, though? This is a female-fronted band. The singer is a person called Faye O'Rourke. And several members, maybe all of the members of this band, had a thing. They were in an indie rock band called Little Green Cars, which was a thing in Ireland for a while. And then that band fell apart, and the remaining members kind of reformed into much more of a alt-pop, synth-oriented band that they called Soda Blonde. And the songwriter, the lyric writer at least, is this girl, Faye O'Rourke. And the thing about Irish bands is that they tend to be political, right? There tends to be a current of politics that runs through Irish art. And that is the product of centuries of colonization and oppression. Irish life is political life because they've been fending off the English for centuries, right? It's part of the culture. And then there's the Troubles. There's the Protestant versus Catholic situation in Ireland. There's been a lot of strife. There's been a lot of turmoil. There's been a lot of colonization and oppression. And it comes through in the art. Now, they're talking a lot of politics over there. And if you want to know more about that, listen to the Blind Boy podcast, and he will tell you all about it in much more eloquent and educated terms and experiential terms than I can. And so this song, Suit and Tie, which is, an alt-pop song, and I don't know how to describe it, except to say Faye O'Rourke has this really wonderful voice. She has this control and resonance to her voice. It is, I say a lot that voices are ethereal, and since I listen to so much shoegaze and indie pop, at least for the purposes of this podcast, those songs tend to be delivered not in a belting way, but in a quiet kind of ethereal way. As I said last week about October, not everybody can do that. Faye O'Rourke can. She has this really interesting texture to her voice, and the video is strange. I thought this song was about a relationship because my default setting with most popular music is that it's about a relationship, but it's not. Again, it goes back to this Irish political thing. And I read a quote from Faye O'Rourke saying that the song Suit and Tie is about what she called Ireland's recent cultural resurgence. Ireland's an interesting place. Back in the early 2000s, they had what's called the Celtic Tiger, where the Irish economy just exploded. And all of a sudden, everybody was getting rich. It was cocaine and nightclubs. And for some reason, Ireland became like the most robust, fastest growing economy on earth. I don't know why, but a lot of people made a lot of money, and then it crashed out. The Celtic Tiger fell apart. A lot of young Irish people left. Right? There was no work to be had. They went to Australia. They went to the States. They went into Europe. There was this sort of collapse, I guess, of the Irish economy and everything that goes with that, which is not new to Ireland. Troubles are not new to Ireland. And I guess there's something of a resurgence happening right now. And so Faye O'Rourke wrote this song about Ireland's recent cultural resurgence. She says, I wrote Suit and Tie about my own feelings of unbelonging and displacement. I didn't grow up with a strong sense of national identity. My mother is from Dublin and my father is from London. And I began to explore my current feelings of loss and isolation. The song became a way of reclaiming something I felt I lost. That's an interesting thing, too, in the context. In the context of what we've been talking about today, reclaiming something that was lost. What used to be yours that isn't anymore? Right? We talked about that with the song Rasa, I Was Never My Own, or whatever that lyric was. Have you got things that you used to do, that you used to love, that you don't have anymore? That can be a sense of identity. That can be a hobby. That can be whatever, but it's another thing. It's like I'm unfulfilled in my life right now. I don't feel grounded. I don't feel I belong anymore. Well, what have you let go of? What used to be in your life that isn't anymore? I don't think Faye O'Rourke is exactly saying that, but it's another angle on all of this. All of this fulfillment. It's like, what's not in your life that used to be, that you want back? I had that experience this week. I've been experimenting with different pickleball paddles, trying more expensive ones, trying different ones made of different material. None of them quite felt right. And then I picked up my old paddle that I've been using for a year, and it's like, well, no, this feels like home. This paddle is not perfect and it's getting older, but it feels right in my hands. It's recovering something I felt I'd lost, which was the feeling of comfort of this paddle and how I can play with it. Sometimes, it's another lesson of pickleball, sometimes you can go back to what used to work before. Musically, you can do that. It's like, I miss playing in a hard rock band. Go back and play in a hard rock band. Or I miss this type of relationship. Or I miss doing this thing with my partner. I miss doing this thing at work. You can go back, right? You can go back to the way things used to be when they worked before. You can re-experience those things. You can cultivate and evolve those things. Faye O'Rourke's talking about suit and tie, not feeling a sense of place. She's in this interesting position of having an Irish mother and an English father. That's a weird convergence of worlds. And the video is strange for this song. It's just her. I assume it's her. And she starts off riding a horse through the Irish countryside. And it is foggy and it is raining. And she's just wearing like a white shirt and pants. But as she travels along, she finds pieces of a suit. So she puts on this muddy dress shirt that she pulls out of a puddle. And she puts on this suit jacket that she finds in another puddle. And she's covered in mud and she's filthy and we don't know where she's going. The chorus is, I'm coming back, I'm coming back, I'm coming back in my suit and tie. Now, I don't know if that's supposed to represent Ireland. I don't know if that's supposed to represent her. But wherever she's coming back from and wherever she's coming back to, she's doing it filthy. She's just covered in mud and it's all foggy and it's vaguely depressing. But the chorus is so catchy. So catchy. This song has this really great, super deep pocket, right? It's just got this groove to it, even though it's kind of dark subject matter. It's got this interesting groove to it. It's got this really deep pocket, this very interesting, resonant, ethereal voice that Faye O'Rourke has. And it's catchy. And the video is weird. It's like she's doing snow angels in the mud at one point, wearing a suit and tie. And I'm not quite sure what she's getting at. I don't quite understand the context of the song, but it's a cool friggin' song and I like it a lot. And that's why I'm choosing to talk about it. It's like there was a repeating refrain at the end of the Rasa song by Octobernaut last week. And we get one here too. At a certain point towards the end of the song, things kind of jump out and then it becomes very dreamy, very spacey. And Faye O'Rourke is singing, I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am. And I think she's talking about this cultural identity thing. I don't know who I am. I'm Irish. I'm English. I don't know who I am. And maybe Ireland doesn't know who it is right now either. I can't speak to that. Blind Boy probably could. And maybe you feel that way too. I don't know who I am. Again, in the context of all this stuff I'm talking about. I know I'm not happy. I know I'm not fulfilled. I know my soul is not dancing, but I don't know who I am. And I can't help you figure out who you are, right? I can only say that if you're feeling these things, if you're feeling this edginess, this dissatisfaction, if you know something is not right with you, you can change it. And one of the ways you change it is by simply pursuing other things. It's like my paddle. I wasn't quite happy with, for a minute, my paddle. Wanted to try new things. So I went out and tried a bunch of stuff. And then I realized I was home already. Some of you may realize that too. Others of you may need to go out and experiment with things to realize who you are, to realize what makes you happy. Now, the worst thing you can do is nothing. The worst thing you can do is nothing when you are feeling unhappy, when you are feeling unfulfilled. Just sitting there and taking it, sitting there and staying in the same situation, hoping it will change, not likely to work, right? You have to make the change as a verb. I'm changing this. And if you don't know who you are, like Faye O'Rourke in this song, one of the things you can do is simply go out there and try stuff. I know I'm not happy, so I'm going to try playing volleyball. Maybe that gives you what it is you want. I don't know. But it's like sitting there doing nothing is just not going to get you anywhere. And then especially sitting there paying homage to some vague someday that you're not actually serious about is probably the worst thing of all. You just trick yourself. You just fall into an illusion, and then 20 years goes by and someday never came because you didn't make the change. You didn't choose. That's harsh, but the older you get, you realize that's reality. But I really like this song, Suit and Tie by Soda Blonde, this band from Ireland. So I'm putting it on the Semi-Eloquent with John Huff referenced on the podcast 2026 playlist with all the other music we've talked about so far this year. I encourage you to go watch the video because it's an interesting one. It's a messy one. And you can perhaps interpret for yourself what you think it's about. This has been far too long, and I hope it gets to you because I'm in the process of switching podcast hosts for financial reasons, and I'm having a bit of trouble with it, so I hope this actually shows up on your preferred podcast platform. I will remind you, merch is available, john-huff.com/shop, for now at least, until I decide to do something with my website, also for financial reasons. Ratings and reviews on Apple are very much welcome. It really does help me try at least to swing the algorithm against all these celebrity podcasts that have so much money behind them and so much attention behind them. Very, very difficult to compete with. So please, ratings and reviews on Apple and Spotify are most welcome. Sharing these episodes is most welcome, and thank you for those who do. And just like those indie bands that are delighted when I talk about them on my show, I'm delighted when I hear from you that you actually listened. Sometimes it really does feel like working in the void, working in the vacuum, working in a kind of silence. So drop me a line, kids. Let me know you're still listening, and let me know if there's stuff you want me to talk about. Let me know if there's stuff that resonates with you. I know I'm talking about a lot of heavy stuff lately, but I'm living a heavy life lately, and I'm getting older, and I'm realizing that time is short. I hope that's not depressing. I hope that is a catalyst for you, because you can change your circumstances. You can change your life. You can. Once you realize that fear is the illusion, you push through fear, and it may be difficult to go through that veil, but on the other side awaits the happiness, joy, fulfillment, purpose that you are longing for. Fear is an illusion, and everything that you want, the happiness, joy, fulfillment, love, awaits you on the other side. I cannot push you through that veil. You can step through it yourself. I have done it myself and seen with my own eyes. If your soul's not dancing, change the music. All right, if you're not happy, think about why. And think about how much time you're devoting, how much energy you are devoting to the illusion of someday, because that is dangerous ground, my friends. Thank you ever so much for listening. Thank you ever so much for your continued support. And if you made it this far, God bless you and all your kin. I will be back next week with something. Until then, remember that good things happen when you put yourself out there, all right? Take care of yourselves.